Hey, Mattie, welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And let's hear a little bit about your organization and what is your role at the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rally is a pickleball lifestyle brand. Pickleball, as you probably know, fastest growing sport in America. And we are creating social club venues focused on serving those leading active social lives and democratizing the country club experience. We just opened our first location in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have plans to expand across North America. But more than that, we want to be a lifestyle brand around pickleball. There's so much opportunity in that space. And I was brought in as employee number 3 behind 2 founders and the director of operations to basically create this brand, which as a brand marketer is an absolute dream. So I oversee, we created the brand strategy from day one and rolled the agency and now just like day-to-day operations of marketing and branding. And I oversee a team of 2. So we've got a creative lead and a community manager.
What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, honestly, I haven't worked for a startup before. This is such a wild experience. Before this, I was at Lululemon for 8 years. That's where I started my career. I started in internal communications and then PR, so more channel side. And then I went into community building. And then after that, I switched gears completely and went into video games and electronic
Oh,
arts
wow.
and The Sims. Yeah, I worked at The Sims for a year and a half over COVID. I didn't even know what an NPC was before I started. I had never really dabbled, but I believed in the Sims brand because the game had helped me so much when I was younger. And then I went on to Reef, which like a lifestyle. You're in Carlsbad. It's a big
The surf
surf
company?
lifestyle brand. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, and sandal company as well. So I say all that because those are big organizations, legacy brands that have been around for 40 years. And all of a sudden, I was thrust into this environment where there was 4 of us, and they said, create a brand. So I didn't realize until this moment how much I loved the entrepreneurial aspect of it. I always had like an inkling that I wanted to do my own thing, but pretty much got served on a golden platter, silver platter rather. An amazing group of 2 women founders that are my age, a concept that I believed in, and just kind of a dream role and really just like no barriers. So I say all that because my day-to-day, as I used to see it as a brand manager, as a brand director at Reef, is so different from here because I am writing the emails, I'm creating future growth strategy for markets, I'm creating our merchandise, literally shipping it from my garage because we created a whole photo shoot and a whole merch line and photo shoot because we didn't have any content for our social site because our venue wasn't open yet. So we needed some brand content. And literally writing threads to getting ready to pitch investors for millions of dollars. So it's a really big mix of activities, and I don't think I could ever go back to being a cog in a machine, to be completely honest.
Can you share more around why you don't want to go back to a larger company?
Yeah, I've never been someone that does well with silos or this is your job or um, you know, the red tape and hierarchy. I was actually just when I was preparing for this, I was looking over some interview notes from the many, many interviews I've done over my career, not podcasts, like for job interviews. Want to be clear on that. And I was looking at my weaknesses, and one of them was I'm bullheaded, and I recognize that I can be really stubborn, and when I have red tape and patterns and all those things, that I really struggle with it. And I saw that, and I finished myself in that interview prep with saying, but I understand that this is part of how you need to work, and you need to play the game and all that. And I just thought to myself, wow, I somehow carved a path for myself where, of course, there is a team of folks that I am reporting into and that are reporting into me that we're working together. But for the most part, I have the freedom to create and do. And, at Rally, we say, see, do a lot. So you see an opportunity and grab it. Something funny comes to my head, I can put it on threads. I don't need to run it by the legal team. We're in like full, the honeymoon stage of brand growth right now. And it's just so cool to see the results. I used to hate data. I used to just be like, oh, why do you need another recap? Just come on, trust that this is great. And now I'm obsessed with data because I'm like, no, we did that. The three of us on the brand team did literally that. We drove traffic in the morning, or we launched this whole merch line ourselves. It's just it's such an empowering feeling to have, that work and have your like hands touching everything in the best way possible.
Can you share a little bit more around how branding and marketing is different than, I'll give the Lululemon example, which is, I mean, if you're athletic and you like sports and working out, that's a household name, versus you said you're just opening up your first location in Charlotte, which means at the most literal level, you have no brand equity at the onset. How is that different for you?
Oh, I mean, I think I was just saying to my team this morning, I think I took advantage of how well known the brands were that I've worked for in the past. I mean, The Sims is one of the most beloved video games of all times. I think it was like 60 million or 40 million active players. See, again, that data thing, a year when I was playing, or when I was working there. Lululemon, I mean, I started when they were just under $1 billion, and I left when they were a $4 billion brand. And Reef as well, a 40-year legacy brand. And I definitely took advantage of just the general awareness. That said, it's like somehow became my role at all these places to kind of turn the ship a little bit. Lululemon had fallen out of favor with younger folks when I was there. So part of my job was Gen Z acquisition, which meant a lot of work on making our brand doing true community building to make our brand more inclusive, because a lot of teenagers decided, you're not including everyone, you're not for us. So Lululemon has come so far in that capacity. At Reef, a lot of people just thought we were like sandals for old folks, which is true. And we made great supportive sandals, but they're also a really rad surf brand that support incredible women and surf, and are doing incredible things for the planet. And, at The Sims, there was just this, I mean, I'm sure if you're paying attention to video games, there's just always, a strong community of haters always. So anyways, those changing like the ship slightly on a big brand with a lot of awareness is so difficult. And I don't know why, but every time it's like, I'm up for this challenge. But it's very difficult. So creating a new brand from fresh, although the equity is not there, it's really easy to do it right from the beginning. And I'll kind of speak about how we've some of the strategies we've done to that, but do it right from the beginning so that, you have loyal consumers right out the gate. So we are like hands-on. Every negative review, any feedback we've gotten, we are calling them. We have co-created this brand with folks, so much so that, I mean, our email open rates, though, of course, you need to think about the percentage of open rates versus how many people we have on our email list. But I mean, we are at like I think my last email was an 80% open rate, which is just kind of unheard of.
Whether it's 20 people or 200,000, that's an amazing open rate.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an engaged community, and we've built this brand in service of them. We are never selling, which was like, as a brand builder, I've told you 3 times before this interview, I'm like, I'm not a growth marketer. I will tell you that straight up. I'm afraid of growth marketing. I'm worried about sometimes what the effect is on a brand. And so this brand has been created so meticulously with consideration of how are we in service of the consumer. And I think because of that, and because of my investment early on in my brand strategy and grassroots community, the second person I hired was a grassroots community manager, which for a lot of brands, that feels like a luxury, right? But for me, I was like, I'll use half my budget. I will buy. And I brought in someone that is so incredible at building community, and she's done an amazing job on the grassroots level. And the result of that, as well as an incredible social presence built by this amazing artist who is our creative brand manager / social media manager, is
the social channels look great.
Thank you. And it's, I mean, honestly, best advice I could give a brand marketer starting from day one is find a young artist. I mean, it doesn't need to be young, but I mean, this is her first corporate career, and she's just so excited and incredible. I mean, you guys should all check out her personal channel. It's called Frustration Smear. She's a watercolor artist. She had never worked in marketing, and she came in and she's just doing amazing things. So anyways, I say all that because we don't have the equity, but already the engagement is so off the, like, it's easier to do this than it is to re-engage and retain some of these folks that we had lost because they thought we were no longer cool, or we were exclusive, or we were for a different demographic than they were. And that's really hard work. Winning back people is really hard. So I would choose this every day again.
Tell us a little bit more then around where you started the show saying that pickleball is the fastest growing sport
Yes.
in America. So you're I'm going to give a metaphor. I don't know if this is the right one, but you're kind of jumping on a wave that's like skyrocketing right now versus you're not trying to sell printer machines, something that's clearly a dying industry. What has it been like just trying to jump into this wave and this momentum that's I mean, this is just a phenomenon, even though pickleball's been around, since the 60s, I believe. The last 3 years since COVID, it just exponential growth.
Yes. Well, have you played pickleball?
I did my first tournament in June at Bobby Riggs.
Okay.
I played Poinsettia Park all the time, if you're familiar with North County, San Diego's.
I feel like I probably would know what that is, but a recent California move
Oh, okay.
person. So
Have you heard of
yeah, well, okay. And I asked that because there's two parts to your question. So first of all, like the wave of pickleball is it's not, to me, it's not a trend, because when you play, something like happens in you where you're like hooked. And I think it's because right away, and our director of pickleball talks about this all the time, right away you are rallying, you are in the game, you are not having to like try and hit the serve perfectly into the box overhead like in tennis. It is like, inclusive by nature in that way.
I
It
can
also,
interject real quick because
yeah.
I going back to your Sims and kind of video games. I played video games a lot, growing up and in college. I haven't played a video game in over a decade as I don't have the time to get good at it versus pickleball. The first time you play, like
You're
you
good. Yeah. And I think why it's become so popular is, okay, so I'm such a woo-woo marketer, and that's like something very important to know to me every time. Even if I was like given the brief of sell this shoe, I was like, but what can this shoe mean to someone? And it's inherently because I don't believe that like just selling products is a good use of any brand marketer's time. I think like you should use your brand to change the world, to change culture, and it starts with selling that one shoe. And I say that because pickleball is this, like, I truly think that it could combat loneliness in the future. And I know that seems again like woo woo, but as soon as you play, this like layer comes off you. You like have to be kind of like, oh, I don't know how to play this. And it's this silly like game with the big ball that makes a funny noise, and you trip and you fall and you don't get it right. And so like the level of vulnerability that you have to show to play that game lets others in. And then you're connected with your partner. You all of a sudden have inside jokes. You're like connected. And I'll tell you the story of this girl that reached out to us on Instagram and said, oh, I want to come to this tournament, but I don't have a partner. We're like, oh shoot, this is our whole goal, is to be a catalyst for connection, for this space to be where people that are in their 20s and 30s can come meet new people, not just like have to like drink a bunch of booze. So we've got incredible cocktails, but connect. And sure enough, she came in, she played with our founder for a few games, but then she got connected with a few girls that came alone. She got connected further with them. They exchanged numbers. Now they're coming back as partners and they're friends. And there are very few sports in the world where you are an active participant in that sport, maybe like in soccer culture where you're watching it and you become part of the fandom together, but where you are participating, you're learning and connecting with others. So anything that is that like, and I talk about this a lot when we'd have media come through our space. I'm like, they have to play pickleball because something psychologically, physiologically needs to change in them for them to be that obsessed with this. And that's also a mentality that I got from Lululemon, where like we want to make everyone have some sort of sweat experience, because that chemical change then will be associated with this positive experience that was put on by this brand. Okay, so saying all that, jumping on this wave, because it is, yes, it's a trend and people are trying it more than ever, but it really does have this lasting impact in you. It's just there's like no momentum that can like stop that. So that's great. But like the challenge thing that our founders came to me and says, pickleball is great, it's trending, but it's not cool. Like people are kind of just like brushing it off as something that they're gonna give it a go, but they think it's kind of lame still. So their goal was to rebrand pickleball and make it feel like a social experience that has a deeper meaning, that can be put together with an old fashioned and really awesome fried chicken sandwich, and you wouldn't even think twice about it in this like social club setting. And that in itself was such a fun challenge. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's like my passion for the sport and the potential behind it.
When did you first start playing?
Yeah, and so this is what's also so cool. We moved to California in January last year, 2 years ago, and we got connected with a group of friends of 30 somethings. And how we got connected with them is they started like a weekly pickleball league, and we ended up having side group chats of surfers and mountain bikers and road bikers and trail runners, but pickleball was the initial thing, and it's still our group text of 25 friends. We talk about everything on there, but that's what brought us together. So that's where I started playing. I got introduced to the sport, and then this opportunity came up, and I was like, I have such a love for this sport because I have never had a community like this in my adult life of like-minded people, and it was pickleball that was the catalyst for that, which is so nice.
I hear you a lot in the community elements of pickleball. I still play soccer and pickups. I've been on teams, and I'm kind of out for blood when I play that.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not there to make friends, like I'm there to compete and win. But my wife and I go on so many double dates for pickleball. I'll just go to open courts by myself and meet new friends, and it's very inclusive. It's competitive, but with a heart to it.
Yeah, I love that. I like a funk to it, like because I am like a self-proclaimed extremely competitive person. So I get really intense on the court, but it's just very quickly we would go for tacos and beers after. And there's very few sports. And I guess if you play rec league soccer and all that, you'd have a similar experience. But that's the harder access point, a barrier to entry. Our friends are bringing their babies in the strollers and six packs, and some of them sometimes have their laptops because they're working, New Zealand hours. So it just creates this kind of community atmosphere, which is incredible.
How would you describe the values of Rally?
Ooh, it's a really good question. So when we created the brand strategy, when we kind of got down to what are we trying to solve in this world, and a lot of it being talking to our founders, who Baird and Meg are 30 somethings. They are married. They have experienced tennis and country club culture for a long time. And there are a couple of things that they wanted to solve, which was country clubs are inherently exclusive and expensive, and that experience you get though is actually pretty rad. Like you get to go and you play tennis and you get your food and you make friends there, and there's a pool, and there's just like all in one recreational experience. And the second thing was they're in their 30s and they're foodies, and they drink really nice cocktails, will seek out the best cocktails in each city, and no place combines like sport or entertainment is what this category is called, which we all cringe at that word because it's not the best, where the food is really good, the drinks are really good, and then like top notch facilities for playing pickleball or whatever sport. And then the third was that they were just past the age of wanting to drink and meet and go out and meet friends and like-minded friends. And they wanted other opportunities for that. And, the pandemic made everyone feel lonely. And so that's kind of where this catalyst for connection, creating the space, developing our community program really came from. So when it comes back to the values, it's all about creating the space, the experiences, the relationships to simply be the catalyst for connection. So we're not necessarily lighting the match. We're just putting all the tinder like in the area and saying, okay, we hope that people are connect. My goal is that we host a rally wedding one day, or best groups of friends go traveling to pickleball courts across the work because they have the
First
connections they
dance
made there.
playing pickleball on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to make a campaign around dawn dating because that's a huge trend right now. People are preferring to go on morning dates than evening. And I'm like, what a better way? Playing pickleball and having coffee. Yes. So yeah, I would say like, ultimately we're a hospitality experience. So people feeling, no shortcut was taken when choosing the quality of both the staff as well as our experiences. We partnered with a local coffee shop and have like an incredible in-house cafe, handmade pastries, like all of the things. It just kind of feels like Epcot where but if Epcot was really premium, and each place you're like, what, you also have this? So the quality and the hospitality is also kind of another core value. And then just like fun. You know, when we did our brand strategy and I looked at who are our personas that we're inspired by that are kind of going to make up our trifecta, it was Princess Diana with her refined, you know, we still wanted a bit of sophistication and premiumness, but also she was known for having a lot of warmth, for having a little bit of a rebellious spirit, which we felt like we were doing when we were bucking the country club trend. Our second was Lewis Hamilton, if you're familiar with F1, like the greatest F1 racer of all time, to be debated with what's going on with Max right now. But he, you know, has bold, competitive, stylish, like he's just, you know, he's a champion just when he walks on, he's a rock star. And then the third, back to fun, was Ryan Reynolds. We wanted someone that was a little bit of irreverence, a little bit of wit, and hopefully that comes across in our materials. Where we're working on a series right now where it's date yourself at rally, and we've got I always want to say it's a peacock, but it's an ostrich, a cartoon of an ostrich in all of our spaces having a solo date and experience within ourselves. And I think that those are all things that lead to this fulsome experience that can be felt physically in that space. But also, if you're following us on social, which really, like, a lot of people are following us that aren't in Charlotte because we're creating this lifestyle brand, they feel the need to connect with the pickleball community there, or engage, or be entertained, and just kind of feel in our core values before we even come to them physically with spaces.
Have you done any due diligence on Bobby Riggs and what they're doing for their community?
No, tell me more.
So I just did my first tournament, like I said, in June over there, and they do this thing once a month where it's a social hour in pickleball. So they'll have vendors with beer and food from local stuff. They'll have a DJ, and then it's 1 to 4, I think, the first Saturday of every month. But they splintered out into so many different things they have going on 7 days a week, nonstop. It's not a membership. It is kind of like pay to play whenever you want to go for whatever the activity is. So I don't necessarily know if they're trying to do active community building versus it's just kind of a hotspot of pickleball, and they just have events and activities and lessons and group stuff going on just nonstop 7 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see. I would equate it to like the craft beer culture, how many brands are jumping into pickleball and opening venues. We are not the first to market that has opened a pickleball restaurant bar concept. Our point of differentiation is definitely like the social club setting. We're targeting discerning millennials. We're targeting urban environments. We never want to be like in a suburb. Our goal is really to be in that urban environment. And I think like what's cool is all this competition is coming out. My mom loves, I mean, I made this big jump from like a safe job to a startup. And so she loves sending me the competition and saying, oh, did you see this one's our opening in Kansas? And, you know, I remain so steadfast in our belief that like our differentiating factor is that greater mission for Catalyst for connection, although like other places are doing it, but also staying hyper focused on who we're targeting, and also making sure that the rest of the premium experience kind of comes across. You come in and you can play pickleball, and again, this isn't just a membership based facility. You can just pop in and have a coffee and work from there, or play pickleball or join one of our events at night. So yeah, I think I probably should look at them too, but at Lululemon,
You
we
just
had
have fun. I think if you just went down there and played
yeah.
like social or whatever, I think you just have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I should. I'm always looking for more courts to play out here. There's not enough.
Can you talk a little bit around the importance of knowing your avatar, which you were just alluding to?
Your avatar or your audience?
Your ideal customer.
Oh, okay. So your muse. There's so many different,
There's
funny.
so many buzzwords.
I know. I used to beat myself up because I changed career paths so many times within the same world. But you know, when you move from PR into community or internal communications, and there's all these terms. I got to, you know, EA, and I was an official brand manager, and I had done brand work, but I had never been a brand manager. And to my right was someone with an MBA, and to my left was someone that studied business. And here I am, this like, let's just create cool stories and cool collaborations. I beat myself up so much being like, you don't know that term, and why do you not know that? And you don't know all the abbreviations for all of the digital marketing metrics once you're a brand director. And I like to bring that up because if anyone younger is listening to this, like I think like every single person is learning a new thing like we just did there.
And I listen to some very techie kind of Silicon Valley oriented
Yeah.
podcasts, and they throw out terms and it goes right over my head as
Yeah.
what
And that you're literally doing a podcast talking to people about this all day. And it's still,
right.
yeah, I think it's so interesting. We do it to ourselves. We love to rebrand things. Okay. So your question or what is around our muse?
Yep. And why is that important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking like my favorite piece about muse work is I'll give you a backstory. When I was at Lululemon, I switched over to this community disruption team is what it was called. And I told you already about how we were focused on Gen Z acquisition, and we were called the Maven team. And our job was basically like go into like the future, figure out who our consumer, our guest will be, and then start to create the pipeline, like the dotted line that's going to bring them to now. So at the time, we might not see them. And if you look at Lululemon's channels now, they look so different than they did 6 years ago. Like it's actually pretty wild. And so the whole thing that we had, the philosophy was, the classic ism of if you ask people what they wanted, they'd say a faster horse. And so when I think about the muse, it's always the aspirational version of like your best-selling guest. So who are they following on Instagram, or even who are they following and what is that person following? Because that's what you should be paying attention to. Because as soon as your muse is, your guest and your current person, then they're going to be like, that's not me. I am cooler than that, or I do that more, or whatever. In reality, that's probably not the case. But so our muse, and we haven't defined one person. That's kind of where I led more into like creating a brand personality, because I have seen brands that have focused on one muse and became very exclusive very fast, though I believe very strongly in having a realm of it. They're a discerning millennial. They have a lot of hobbies. They in their garage, they have a tennis racket, maybe they've hit around, they have a surfboard, even though they live in Michigan, they have, a bike that they will go around with. They're not afraid to try new things. They love food, and because our food is at a premium and we put so much thought and care and love into the ingredients of our food, we can't just have people that are okay with like blah food coming in. So we definitely are targeting a consumer that cherishes curated meals. So a really, like alluded to, a fried chicken sandwich that has like a bomb sauce on top with a really curated aioli with the fries versus like a salmon and butter. Like that's not the vibe.
Right.
And they are just always looking for ways to connect more deeply with other folks. So they are not looking for the small talk. They want to have deep and meaningful chats right away, which again is because pickleball allows for that. So it's just kind of these like core values of the muse. And then when we think about aesthetically, that's when I talked about the faster horse situation. Aesthetically, kind of got to leapfrog what's out there. And this was one of the things I want to talk to you about, because I think it's so interesting, is you obviously know the term bland, right? Or sorry, I shouldn't say obviously, that's pretentious of me. You've heard of the term like blanding?
I've not actually.
Okay, cool. So, and I don't think many people have, so I don't know why I say obviously, but it's the idea of all the, the D2C era that kind of just passed, of all the brands having the white background with like the beautiful, I always get confused if it's sans serif or serif font, but you can picture it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes. And they all kind of had the same vibe, and they relied very strongly on like clean, visual, minimalist, playing into millennials' love of minimalism. And when we created this brand in a post-blanding era, what did that look like? So it means, still keeping a strong aesthetic, because we're targeting this millennial, but bringing in, and not going to the way that happened after the post-blanding, which is everyone going to the Gen Z bright maximalism. You look at the shelf at Target and you're like, that's for millennial, that's for someone younger, because it's just like neon green and massive bubbly letters that look like it was created on word art. And that's like, that works for them. But I think somewhere in between, someone said that our brand was kind of this like clean aesthetic, but with funk. And I love that. And there's creativity and there's art. And I think where that's serving, when it goes back to the muse conversation, are these multidimensional people that are just like, hey, we don't just see you as like clean and needing this, because that person also probably gets funky. They probably have a weird playlist that they scream sing in the car, or like they prefer ordering the weirdest thing despite their home looking like a Scandinavian spa, right? So more brands that are kind of speaking to that full self and like the different aspects of who you could be, I think is important. So again, I warned you about my woo-woo-ness, but that's kind of how we develop the brand, and thinking about who the muse is going to be 5 years from now and what she's interested and he's interested in, versus like, what are we seeing in the marketplace now and what is that guest needing now?
I want to know how you understand the muse. What type of research do you do, whether it's primary, secondary? Because that was a very specific example that you have a Spotify playlist with funky tunes you like to sing in your car. And I was visualizing that person as you're saying that. It's like, oh, these dots all connect of what that person is probably like. How do you understand that person and just get to know them?
Yeah, that's I don't know if a muse in true form of brand marketing actually exists. Like it's again, a conglomeration of a bunch of different people that you're like, okay, that person I will never unfollow because what they put out there is so interesting to me, right? But I mean, shifting away from like particularly muse, but just finding inspiration is, I said this earlier, but like at Lululemon, we were encouraged not to send around Nike's campaigns or Adidas's campaigns. It was look at what we've done in the past, look at all the things that the stores are doing in the community, the people they're creating, and compete with like, what is Evian's campaign versus what is Nike's campaign. And I hold true to that, because when you think about the muse, I think the goal is to compete with culture, not with your category. So at Reef, I was constantly like, let's not look at Olakai or, some of these other shoe brands. Let's look at, what is the coolest beauty brand doing, and how can we take inspiration from their storytelling to craft that into our narrative? Because ultimately your consumer is getting hit up with like these like-minded brands. So when it comes to research of our consumer, I am definitely paying attention to the outside world, probably more than the inside. And that goes back to like the faster horse thing, because by the time you get the data, but by the time you see who's buying your product and all their patterns, it's like a little bit outdated, and someone's already released something else and they've already bought 6 more products on other brands, and you kind of need to just keep getting ahead. And yeah, I think that that's probably the best way. And so, yeah, I find inspiration from not the trending musics, but, what does my friends Discover Weekly look like? And the photo dump era was such an interesting thing on social media, and like how are some people curating their lives, and then what is the next version of that, and just paying attention to that kind of thing as well.
Can you talk about how Rally is utilizing video content?
Ooh, that's a good question. So what happens when you are a startup opening a restaurant, pickleball, is like your marketing budgets aren't massive. So in terms of professional content, we've had to really be creative with what we can create. I would say the reels and what we're able to create, and by we, I mean my wonderful social media / creative brand manager, based on the short the clips, there it is, say that fast, the short clips that she's able to grab that tell the brand story, that have a kind of an idea of what the story will be, and then creating into that. And then I would say something that's so wild that happened is we had all these drone pilots just kind of showing up at Rally, because our courts are this beautiful pink color, and taking drone footage, and it's gorgeous. And we're like, can we share that? That's so cool. And they're like, absolutely, here it is, just tag us. So we got lucky with that, and we've been blasting that out on our social channels and our emails.
Pink?
Sorry?
They're pink?
Our courts are pink, yes.
Did you try to capitalize on Barbie?
Oh, yeah. No, we didn't. And it's interesting. I think it's because of my like one step ahead. As soon as I saw like 5 brands do it, I was like, we could either create a TikTok right this second on this and create an activation, or I think we're too late. And that's been like, that's a brand marketer's job every time, is like, are we too late or can we add to this? So we should have, though. We probably should have. We should have been more attuned to it. But we've only been open a month, so we've got our heads down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to hear from you around a marketing campaign win that you've had either at Rally or throughout your career that you're really proud of, and why do you think it was a success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I might give you one at Rally, and then I might give you a second one, but
Whatever you want to gloat about, the floor is yours.
yeah. Oh, thank you. So, I just a really recent one, and I think this is helpful for anyone that starts to work at a startup and feels like you are being told and asked from the operations team, like, please marketing, promote this, do this. And honestly, anyone at any marketing team, because it's product, it's ops, it's all the people. We've got a sale, but we need to do this brand story. Anyways, one of the things I solved for that is I finally sat down and I created a brand calendar. I was like, we are going to focus on one story a week, one business objective. Like I said, we've got a very complex thing that we're selling. Not only is it a global lifestyle brand that we're intending to be, but we're also needing to tell people that in Charlotte that they can get their coffee from us, that they can come do a HIIT workout with us, that they can come meet new people. And so what we did was create these kind of like micro campaigns per week. And this last week was all focused on our morning programming. So we have this thing called Quartz and Coffee where you can have open play and drink coffee. And we wanted to open up our space a little bit more for co-working and coffee and all the focuses of we are just started a new pastry chef that does all these things. And I'm always hyper focused on the fact that like, what is, Kelly in Nebraska or Haley in Denver thinking of our brand, because we don't want to inundate her with like restaurant specials, happy hour, because they'll quickly unfollow us. Like they don't care. They want to follow this really cool global lifestyle brand that happens to have a space in Charlotte, and maybe we'll come to their market one day. And so by promoting the idea that like this space is so much more than pickleball, we've got this beautiful aesthetically pleasing lounge and you can co-work, it adds like value in these other consumers' minds. Anyways, it was a win because when you're a new business, everyone, again, from an internal perspective, want to tell you something, but we're like, this is breakfast week. If it's related to breakfast, if it's related to the morning, we will talk about it. Otherwise, we got to talk about it next week, which is the hardest thing as like a brand leader, again, at a startup, because you want to be like low hanging fruit, but you'll burn out your team and yourself that way. And then the second thing that's so important to startups is Google reviews. We got our first, and like, I can't believe this is like what brings me the most joy.
Thing to do too.
Yes. Yeah, well, and we got our first Google review about breakfast at the end of this week after putting all of these like really intense energy. And by really intense, I mean like 4 social posts and an email and like a new cafe page on our thing. But it's because of our highly engaged audience. It worked. And we got this like really positive Google review, which again, if you had told me when I was working for billion-dollar brands that I'd be so excited about one Google review talking about our breakfast, and that's like how I find a win, I would have laughed. I've been like, remember this like massive $1 million campaign that you ran? what is this? But these are the wins, and it shows wins in community, which is really cool. But yeah, I can tell you about a bigger campaign. If you want me to go back to my old days, I can talk about the Sims or Reef, or I've got one for
let's go to 2 more questions I have. I do want to hear on the flip side. So one of the things in marketing is that there's learning, there's testing. Not everything you throw out is going to work 100% of the time. And I always make the comparison to, an open heart surgeon. There is no split testing. It's either you do this or I die. And I want to hear from you around a marketing fail that you've had and what you learned through that experience of not working.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've had so many fails. Like, one of the best things about being young and in your 20s is you're convinced that you are correct. And one of the worst things is you're correct until you're really wrong. And this one wasn't even when I was that young, but when I was at The Sims, like I've said, my goal for when I enter these brands is usually to like make this so much bigger, to make it impacting people's lives. And I saw as an opportunity that a lot of these folks didn't just identify as gamers. A lot of them actually wouldn't even check the box when they're a simmer. Like they're like, no, I'm a simmer, I'm not a gamer, which is interesting because this was in the same realm of like metaverse conversation about more and more people being interested in like a third reality and what that life could look like. The Sims is a place where people can play out their like lives in a different way. And there's all this interesting thing. And so my goal when I was at The Sims was always just like get more people to experience what it's like to live life in The Sims so that they can A/B test things and they can, I built my, we bought a house during the pandemic and I like designed it all in The Sims first. And that's just like a silly, stupid example. Anyways, I came in with that mindset and I was constantly like, okay, so how do we get more people to know that this is a game? They don't need to just like be a gamer to play it. Like this is a community they can join. And PR is a massive way to do that. And so there's this conversation with the metaverse happening. There's a conversation with fashion in the metaverse happening. This is when every brand was entering the metaverse. And we're like, great, this is awesome. This is such a good time to do this. And so there was an opportunity for us to bring our players were asking for more menswear. And we we're like, well, menswear is kind of an antiquated thing. Most people can wear menswear and they don't need to like be a male. So who is leading in this space? And there was this designer out of London called Stefan Cook, and they're incredible, still stand by it. And we did this because we wanted to, subvert what menswear can look like. There was a lot of skirts and dresses and kilts and just so thoughtfully designed by an actual designer that like walks runways in this space. And it landed really well with media. We got more media hits on The Sims than we had in years. But the community said, but we just wanted like baggy men's jeans. We don't care about fashion. We don't care. So my whole career has been about listening and co-creating with community. And for some reason, I kind of like forgot that and was like, but like, let's get new people in. So I wouldn't say it's like a complete fail because more people came into the game and more people were interacting and asking questions about what is menswear in 2021 or whenever that was. But it was one of my things where the reaction to the release was so like, you didn't listen to us. We just want men's t-shirts and shorts because we don't have enough in the base game. That was a letdown, right? You're like, oh shit, like we missed it a little bit. But at the same time, there was other marketing objectives for that. So that was like a huge learning. And like also was the reality of like, I wasn't a video gamer and I hadn't been part and embedded of the Sims community at that point. I just kind of looked at the opportunity for more people to be part of something I saw as magic.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And the last question is, what is the best purchase you've made for under $100, either personally or professionally in the last 6 months?
Ooh. So I got really into surfing since I moved here, but I shouldn't say I'm horrible. My husband gets upset with me when I say that, but I'm not great. Like I'm like if I'm in the lineup with you, you're probably like, oh yeah, no, she's a bit of a kook. And I bought a new surfboard last month, which was more than $100. So I'm gonna say a surf leash because it's important that the surfboard's attached to me. But the greater meaning is like I went off my big foamy longboard and I got a mid-length, and being in your 30s and learning a new sport is like the most humbling thing. And what that like leash symbolizes and this new board symbolizes to me is like I have persisted despite wanting to give it up and reverting back to one of my many other hobbies. Like I could road ride, or I could do all these other things, but I'm like, I'm going to learn surfing. And I think it's such an important thing to get a dose of humble pie when you're in this stage of your career and your life and learn a new sport. So yeah, that leash and that new board that again was more than $100 because you'd be hard pressed to find a surfboard for $100 even at Costco. It's like surfing has changed my life and taught me so many things, not only about myself, but also like constantly like, oh, follow the flow. Why would you try and get into the wave when it doesn't have power? All those metaphors that you can just then put into your career. So a surf leash.
Love it. And lastly, if someone wants to learn more about you, Rally, can you share links, social media channels, anything you think that would be relevant?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rally Pickleball is at Rally Pickleball, RALLY, and then pickleball. And you can check out our website, rallypickleball.com. You can add me on LinkedIn, Madeline Sims. And you can follow me on social. I'm not that interesting there though, but Madeline Sims _ on Instagram.
Perfect, Maddie. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.